Music is far more than just a sequence of sounds, it's an emotional and psychological powerhouse. Scientists have found that when you listen to music, your brain releases dopamine, the same feel-good chemical linked to pleasure from food, love, and even addictive substances. That's why a great song can feel like a drug. Certain chords and melodies trigger specific emotions. Minor keys often evoke sadness or tension, while major keys tend to sound happy and uplifting. But it's not just theory. Classical composers like Mozart and Beethoven used these principles deliberately to manipulate listeners' feelings. Modern pop music does the same, which is why a sad ballad can make you tear up without you even realizing why. Rhythm also plays a huge role. Fast beats activate the motor cortex, making you want to move, while slower tempos induce relaxation or melancholy. Ever notice how a driving drumbeat can pump you up before a workout? That's your brain syncing with the rhythm. Lyrics add another layer by engaging the language processing parts of the brain. A well-written song can change your perspective or even shape memories. Hearing a tune from your past can instantly transport you back to a specific moment, good or bad. Research even suggests that music can alter pain perception and reduce anxiety. Hospitals sometimes use calming melodies for patients because slow, harmonious sounds lower cortisol levels. But music's power isn't universal. Cultural background influences how you interpret it. What sounds joyful in one culture might mean mourning in another. Ultimately, music is a mirror of the human mind. It doesn't just reflect emotions, it creates them. Whether it's the adrenaline rush of rock or the serenity of classical, sound shapes how we feel, think, and remember. Music is one of humanity's oldest forms of expression, dating back tens of thousands of years. Archaeologists have found bone flutes from over 40 years ago, proving that even early humans understood the power of sound. These first instruments weren't just for entertainment, they were tied to survival, used in rituals to communicate, bond communities, and even alter states of consciousness. Some of the earliest known musical systems developed in Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. The Greeks later formalized music theory, with Pythagoras discovering mathematical relationships between tones. But music wasn't just an intellectual pursuit, it was sacred. Chants and hymns were believed to connect mortals to gods. Across the world, indigenous cultures used music for storytelling, healing, and rites of passage. Aboriginal Australians played the didgeridoo in ceremonies, while African drumming patterns preserved history and transmitted messages across vast distances. The medieval period saw music become more structured, with Gregorian chants dominating religious life. Then the Renaissance brought polyphony, complexity, and eventually the birth of opera. Fast forward to the 20th century, and technology transformed everything. Records, radio, and digital production turned music into a global force. Today's pop, hip-hop, and electronic beats still carry echoes of those ancient rhythms. The primal need for music never faded, it just evolved. From shamans to Spotify, humanity has always been driven by the same impulse: to create, to feel, and to connect through sound. Music has long been called a universal language, but is that really true? Let's dive into the science, history, and cultural nuances to see if sound truly transcends borders. Studies show that music activates the same brain regions across different cultures. A rhythm or melody can evoke joy, sadness, or excitement, regardless of language. Babies respond to lullabies from foreign cultures, and people worldwide recognize happy or sad music even if they've never heard it before. Neuroscience suggests that our brains are wired to process music in similar ways, making it a powerful emotional connector. But cultural differences shape how we interpret music. A Western listener might find joy in a major scale, while certain traditional Eastern music uses microtonal intervals unfamiliar to Western ears. In some African cultures, polyrhythms are second nature, but they can sound chaotic to someone raised on 4/4 time signatures. Cultural context matters. What sounds celebratory in one place might be mournful in another. History shows how music travels and adapts. The blues influenced rock, which inspired K-pop, proving melodies and rhythms can jump continents. But the meaning shifts with each adaptation. A Bollywood song might sample Beethoven, but the emotional resonance changes in its new setting. Even without words, instrumental music carries cultural fingerprints. A Scottish bagpipe tune feels distinct from a Japanese shakuhachi piece, though both can express longing. Lyrics add another layer. Love songs exist everywhere, but metaphors and themes reflect local values. Music isn't a perfect universal language, but it's a bridge. It sparks curiosity, invites sharing, and connects people when words fail. Whether it's a viral TikTok track or a traditional folk song, music opens doors if we were willing to listen. The idea that silence could be music seems contradictory, but many composers and philosophers have debated this for centuries. John Cage's famous piece 433, where the performer plays nothing, challenged audiences to reconsider the boundaries of music. Is it about sound, or is it about listening? Silence in music is not just the absence of sound, it's an intentional pause that shapes meaning. A skilled composer uses rest to create tension, emphasis, or reflection. Beethoven's dramatic pauses in his symphonies are as powerful as the notes themselves. In jazz, the space between notes is where improvisation breathes. Some cultures treat silence as sacred. In Japanese Zen Buddhism, the space between sounds is considered profound. Traditional No theater uses silence to heighten emotional weight. Even Western classical music relies on silence as a structural element. It's the canvas on which sound is painted. But is silence alone music? Cage argued that true silence doesn't exist. Even in 433, the audience hears ambient noise, their breath, distant sounds. Those become the music. Others say music requires intentional sound. The debate continues, but one thing is certain: silence forces us to listen differently, making us rethink what music really is. Perhaps silence isn't music on its own, but it's inseparable from it. Like shadows defining light, silence gives sound its shape and power. Whether in a quiet meditation or the space between chords, it remains one of art's most expressive tools. Throughout history, great composers have used music as a powerful tool to challenge social conventions, provoke thought, and even spark revolutions. Beethoven shattered aristocratic musical traditions by dedicating his revolutionary Third Symphony to Napoleon before famously scratching out the dedication when Napoleon declared himself emperor. This act of defiance symbolized a rejection of autocratic rule, embedding democratic ideals into the very structure of his music. In 19th-century Russia, Modest Mussorgsky's pictures at an exhibition incorporated raw, unconventional harmonies that defied Western classical norms, asserting a distinctly Russian musical identity. His opera Boris Godunov portrayed the suffering of common people rather than glorifying royalty, making it dangerously political for its time. Claude Debussy broke the rules of traditional tonality with his impressionistic works, creating dreamlike soundscapes that shocked conservative audiences. His refusal to follow rigid compositional structures mirrored broader cultural shifts toward modernism in early 20th century Europe. Duke Ellington used jazz to challenge racial barriers in America, performing compositions of unprecedented sophistication that forced white audiences to acknowledge black musical genius. His Black, Brown, and Beige suite boldly narrated African American history through music when segregation was still en force. In the Soviet Union, Dmitri Shostakovich embedded subversive messages in his symphonies. His Fifth Symphony's triumphant finale was actually a bitter parody of Soviet propaganda, a fact overlooked by censors but understood by listeners. The dissonant chaos of his works mirrored the oppressive reality of Stalin's regime. More recently, figures like Nina Simone transformed protest songs into anthems of the civil rights movement. Her rendition of Strange Fruit, though not originally hers, became a harrowing musical indictment of lynching in America. These composers proved music could be more than entertainment. It could be dissent, a call to action, or a mirror held up to society. By bending notes, they bent minds, using their art to question authority and imagine a different world. Their legacies remind us that innovation in music has always been tied to social change. The phenomenon of music triggering vivid memories is one of neuroscience's most fascinating mysteries. When you hear a song from your past, it's not just nostalgia, it's a complex neurological process that can recreate entire moments with startling clarity. Scientific research reveals that music activates the hippocampus, the brain's memory center, more powerfully than other stimuli. Studies show Alzheimer's patients recognizing songs from their youth despite forgetting names and faces, proving music's unique pathway to deep memory. The brain encodes music differently. While most memories fade, musical ones remain remarkably durable. This is because melodies engage multiple brain regions simultaneously: auditory cortex for sound, amygdala for emotion, and motor cortex for rhythm. When these areas sync, they create strong neural connections that resist decay. Emotional context amplifies this effect. Your first dance at prom, a road trip anthem, or a breakup song all became intertwined with music through heightened emotional states. The brain marks these moments as significant, tagging them with auditory cues for easier recall later. Cultural soundtracks demonstrate this collectively. For generations, people remember where they were when they heard historic news reports paired with specific music. The association between event and soundtrack becomes permanently linked in public consciousness. Even more intriguing, music can help recover lost memories. Therapists use personalized playlists to help dementia patients access buried recollections. The right song can suddenly bring back wedding details, childhood homes, or lost loved ones with cinematic detail. What makes this truly remarkable is music's precision. A single guitar riff or vocal run can transport you to a specific summer, first love, or life-changing moment decades later. No other art form provides such an exact key to our personal history. This explains why we keep returning to certain songs. They're not just melodies, but time machines. Each replay strengthens those neural pathways, ensuring certain memories remain vibrant throughout our lives. Music doesn't just accompany our stories, it preserves them in ways words alone never code. The next time an old song gives you chills, know it's your brain performing one of its most sophisticated tricks, collapsing time through the alchemy of melody and memory. The question of whether we can ethically separate artwork from its creator has haunted art lovers for centuries, but in the streaming era where problematic artists still dominate playlists, it's become particularly urgent. When an artist commits reprehensible acts, does continuing to enjoy their work make us complicit? History gives us no easy answers. Richard Wagner created breathtaking operas while expunging virulent antisemitism. Should we boycott Ride of the Valkyries, knowing Hitler adored it? Many conductors still wrestle with this dilemma during Wagner performances today. The classical world has centuries of this baggage. Caravaggio's genius emerged alongside his violent crimes. Do we ignore Renaissance masterpieces because their patrons were tyrants? The Sistine Chapel was commissioned by a corrupt pope, yet Michelangelo's work transcends its origins. Modern controversies hit closer to home. When fans discovered Kelly's crimes, his streams initially increased, demonstrating how listeners compartmentalize. Some argue Kelly's music profits still fund his legal defense, making streams materially harmful. Others claim abandoning I Believe I Can Fly erases its cultural impact beyond its creator. The economic argument adds complexity. When radio stations dropped Michael Jackson's music after leaving Neverland, thousands of musicians who played on those records lost royalty income. Can we punish one artist without collateral damage? Philosophers propose various frameworks for evaluation. Intentionalism suggests art's meaning depends on its creator's intentions. Others advocate for death of the author, judging art purely on its own merits. Cultural appropriation debates complicate this further when artists profit from communities they have harmed. Some listeners adopt pragmatic solutions like only listening through unofficial channels so artists don't profit. Others draw personal lines, rejecting living problematic artists, while making exceptions for historical figures. The uncomfortable truth may be that great art often comes from flawed humans. Do we acknowledge complexity without excusing harm? Perhaps the answer lies in conscious engagement, enjoying artistic achievements while interrogating their origins, rather than pretending the separation is clean or simple. In an ideal world, all artists would be ethical. Since they're not, listeners must decide case by case, weighing artistic merit against personal ethics, always aware that every play is a small but meaningful endorsement. Technology's impact on music creation presents a paradox. While it has democratized production, critics argue it may have lowered the bar of true musicianship. Auto-tune, sampling, and composition tools don't just assist artists, they actively reshape what we consider musical talent. The synthesizer debate of the 1980s foreshadowed today's conflicts. Purists claimed electronic instruments would destroy real music, yet synthesizers birthed entirely new genres. Today, producers access tools unimaginable a generation ago. A bedroom beatmaker with a laptop can craft sounds that once required million-dollar studios. Modern vocal processing reveals the heart of the issue. When T-Pain popularized autotune as an artistic effect rather than pitch correction, it sparked enduring controversy. Some hear creative innovation, others lament the loss of natural vocal skill. Recent AI tools go further, synthesizing voices indistinguishable from human singers raises unsettling questions about authenticity. Quantization presents another dilemma. The digital correction of imperfect timing makes recordings flawless but arguably sterile. Jazz drummer Questlove has criticized how quantized tracks lack the human feel of slight rhythmic variations that give music its soul. Yet most modern pop would sound radically different without this technology. The streaming era's data-driven approach affects composition itself. Algorithms analyze which chord progressions and beats engage listeners longest, potentially influencing artists to create formulaic music that performs well statistically rather than taking risks. Composition tools like OpenAI's Jukebox can now generate original songs in varied styles by analyzing massive musical databases. This forces us to question, if AI creates a perfect Beatles-style song, is it less valuable if no human experienced the cultural moment that originally birthed that sound? Yet technology also enables unprecedented creativity. Audio manipulation birthed entire genres like vaporwave that repurpose old recordings into new art. Digital tools help disabled musicians create where traditional instruments might fail them. Perhaps the debate misses the point. Technology doesn't replace creativity, it changes its nature. The gramophone didn't kill live performance, sampling became an art form, and synthesizers expanded musical vocabulary. The fear isn't about tools, but about how they are used. Great music ultimately stems from vision, whether realized through a Stradivarius or a smartphone app. As AI advances, we may need new frameworks for valuing human creativity in music. The best artists always adapt tools to their vision rather than letting tools dictate their art. In this light, technology isn't a crutch or a threat, but yet another instrument awaiting mastery. The connection between music and happiness isn't just poetic, it's physical. Neuroscientific studies reveal that listening to upbeat music triggers dopamine release in the brain's reward system, the same chemical reaction caused by eating chocolate or falling in love. This biological response explains why certain melodies can instantly uplift our mood. Different cultures have intuitively understood music's joyful potential for millennia. From Brazilian samba circles to Tibetan singing bowls, societies developed musical traditions specifically designed to induce communal euphoria. Modern science confirms what these cultures knew: group singing synchronizes heart rates and releases endorphins that create bonds between participants. The major, third interval found in nursery rhymes across cultures exemplifies this universal musical optimism. Researchers discovered that infants as young as 5 months respond more positively to consonant harmonies than dissonant ones, suggesting our preference for happy sounds may be hardwired. Music therapy demonstrates practical applications of this phenomenon. Hospitals use customized playlists to reduce patient anxiety before surgery, sometimes proving as effective as sedatives. Parkinson's patients often regain fluid movement when listening to rhythmic music, experiencing both physical and emotional relief. However, context profoundly shapes music's emotional impact. A study of the song Happy by Pharrell Williams found listeners in war zones experienced it differently than those in peaceful environments. This demonstrates that while music can spark joy, our brains filter it through personal circumstances. Recent technological advances allow us to quantify music's effects. Biofeedback sensors show how different genres alter heart rate variability, with up-tempo songs typically improving stress resilience. Streaming platforms now use AI to detect which musical elements, specific chord changes, rhythms, or frequencies consistently correlate with listener happiness. The phenomenon of earworms reveals another dimension of music's power. When a catchy melody involuntarily replays in our minds, it activates the brain's pleasure centers similarly to actual listening. This explains why simply remembering a joyful song can improve our mood. While music can't solve life's problems, biologists confirm its unmatched ability to provide immediate, cost-free mood elevation. Whether through the neural fireworks of a Beethoven symphony or the primal pulse of a drum circle, sound waves remain one of humanity's most reliable sources of spontaneous happiness. The science is clear: when we say music makes us happy, we're describing literal neurochemical reality. The evolution of music has always mirrored technological and cultural shifts, and today we stand at the threshold of transformations that may fundamentally redefine what music is. Composition tools already generate convincing original works, with projects like Google's Magenta creating music indistinguishable from human-made compositions. This raises profound questions about authorship and artistic value in the coming decades. Brain-computer interfaces hint at even more radical possibilities. Experimental systems like those from Neurable allow users to compose music through thought alone, translating brainwave patterns into melodies. Such technology could eventually enable direct neural music sharing, transmitting not just sounds, but the entire sensory experience of music from one mind to another. The environmental crisis is reshaping music production physically. With analog synths requiring rare earth metals and vinyl production's ecological impact, sustainability concerns drive innovation. Biodegradable instruments and carbon-neutral digital platforms emerge as responses, while some artists now calculate their tour's carbon footprint as meticulously as their setlist. Cultural globalization accelerates at unprecedented speed. Streaming algorithms expose listeners worldwide to previously isolated genres, creating hybrid forms unimaginable a generation ago. Traditional Mongolian throat singing now influences electronic producers, while African rhythms permeate mainstream pop. Some ethnomusicologists predict we may see the first truly global musical language emerge within our lifetime. Personalization technology advances beyond simple playlist algorithms. Services like Endel create real-time generative music tailored to listeners' biometric data, crafting unique soundscapes that adapt to heart rate, stress levels, and even weather conditions. This bespoke auditory experience could make conventional recorded music seem archaic. Live performances face their own revolution. Hologram concerts of deceased artists already draw crowds, while augmented reality lets audiences experience shows customized to their location. Imagine walking through your neighborhood while a virtual orchestra performs just for you. Such technologies may preserve cultural heritage while redefining what live even means. Yet amidst these changes, the human craving for authentic connection through sound remains constant. The most exciting developments may be those that balance technological possibility with psychological necessity. Music always reflects its time, soon it may also predict our future. These innovations promise greater accessibility and creativity, but they also carry risks of cultural homogenization and artistic devaluation. As music's next chapter unfolds, one truth endures: no matter how advanced the tools become, humanity's need to express and connect through organized sound will continue driving our musical evolution in unexpected directions.